Hello and welcome to Business on the Wire. On an unrelenting spree, retail petrol prices are rolling towards the 100 rupee mark across most parts of India. It's clearly one of the most expensive rates that ordinary people pay anywhere in the world. So, why are fuel prices this high? The answer lies in a five-letter word: taxes. Retail petrol and diesel prices are in theory decontrolled. What that means is that they're linked to global oil prices. So if crude prices internationally fall, petrol and diesel prices that you and I pay will fall as well. And global prices did fall very sharply through the period of 2020, all the way starting from the month of February. So did retail prices come down as well? No. When the pandemic hit last year, state owned retail companies or retailers actually stopped price revisions. There was a shutdown on price revisions for a record 82 days, which means that consumers have been hit by a double whammy. They were not benefiting from the fall in crude prices in the first half of the year, and then they were getting stamped under or slumped under record high prices of fuel in the second half of the year. So, what caused the prices to surge this much? Let's take a look at how this gets sliced up in terms of the prices that we finally pay when we go to fill up any of our vehicles. The central government hiked the central excise duty on petrol to close to 33 rupees per litre during the course of last year from rupees 20 per litre at the beginning of 2020. Similarly, diesel prices, the excise duty on diesel was actually all the way up to 32 rupees per litre from 16 rupees per litre at the start of the year. In 2018 and 2019, the share of excise duty on a litre of petrol was 47%. The government then went on to increase the duty by 3 rupees a litre in March 2020 and then by a much more significant 10 rupees per litre in May 2020. This when global crude prices were actually below production costs, so very, very low international crude oil prices. The states jumped in with higher sales tax. What's the net result that we're staring at today? State and central taxes actually amount to 180% of the base price of petrol and 141% of the base price of diesel in a city like Delhi, for example, and it's not much different for any other city that you may pick. Let's slice up the pie another way. Central excise duty makes up for about 39% of petrol and about 42.5% of diesel. So, after you consider local sales tax or VAT, the total tax incidence in the price that we pay for a litre of petrol is about two-thirds of the retail rate paid by you and I. That is a whopping slice of the cost that we are actually being burdened with. Have such high fuel prices on fuel meant rich pickings in taxes? The answer is an emphatic yes. While the pandemic actually pummeled tax collection across the board, excise duty mop up jumped to 48% in the current fiscal. In fact, there's more specific figures on that as well. Excise duty collection during April to November 2020 was at 1,96,342 crores. That's up from 1,32,899 crores, I beg your pardon. That was the mop up during the same period in 2019. This is data that is available from the Controller General of Accounts, so it can be looked at and verified by anyone. While some states have actually rolled back their share of taxes because of how high prices have gotten to, there's been no such move from the center. The problem with rising fuel costs is not just what we end up paying for our cars or our motorcycles or any of that. It's also its ability to creep into other parts of our lives. Reports from mandis are already indicating that prices of vegetables have risen by between 5 to 10 rupees because of the rising costs of fuel. That's how it impacts us. Remember, farming involves tractors, harvesting machines, any number of implements, and all that has a fuel cost to it, a fuel price that hits the farmer and indeed hits the kind of output that he's getting. So, here's 4 questions that one should ask at this point. Number 1. The government reasons that global crude oil prices have risen by more than 50% since October that has actually forced oil retailers to now start increasing pump prices. But Indian consumers are already paying much higher in January 21 this year than they were in January 20, even though global prices are comparable. So in Jan 20 and in Jan 21, global prices remained at around that $63, $64 to a barrel, but we're paying much more. Why? The second question. The big oil tax collection over the last 12 months has been via additional excise, which the center does not share with states. Is it not a violation of federal principle that the share of cess earned by the center in its gross tax collection has actually gone up from 13% to 19% over the last 2 years, but none of that is coming to the states? Why is the government so heavily dependent on energy for taxes, and why won't it share the earnings? That's actually two questions, but two very crucial ones. The next question. In November 2020, the petroleum minister had promised to gradually bring petro products under GST, which has been a long-standing, ask. He indicated that at least 2 out of the 5 petroleum products, including aviation turbine fuel or ATF and natural gas, are likely to be amongst the first set of petro products that will be included in the GST fold. What happened? We have not heard any of that in the union budget, and it doesn't seem like that's a discussion on the table anymore. Finally, and most importantly for me, frankly, in an environment where inflation has been quite sticky and when mobility and movement for the economy is so slowly picking up, shouldn't the government support this recovery by actually scaling back on indirect taxes that are slapped on petrol and diesel? It seems counterintuitive. You want the economy to pick up, but when mobility is, you're slapping it with more and more price rise by way of petrol and diesel. What is counterintuitive is why there's been such little protest against this rise. Slow burn, drip poison, you can call it what you want. But this slow and relentless rise seems to have made people quite resigned to the idea of very high petrol and diesel prices. However, I will point out that it is neither good economics nor good governance to burden a citizenry this way in terms of the prices that they have to pay in order to get around their cities.
To receive instant updates on all videos from The Wire, click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon. Pay to support independent journalism. Click the link in the description and choose the amount you want to pay.